What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog, back in Historic with a Simic list. Still playing around with the Simic Ascendancy. We'll get some nice support in Jumpstart, so I kind of want to get this out there. It's a fun little card. It's pretty janky, so we're not going to run it in best of 3. We're just going to run it in some casual best of 1. So Simic Ascendancy, just to review, is a 2-mana enchantment. You can pay 3 to put a +1 counter on a creature you control. Whenever one or more counters are put on a creature you control, you put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. So it's nice that it's not just a one-time effect. It's you put 5 counters on one of your creatures, you get 5 counters on the Simic Ascendancy. And beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more counters on it, you win the game. So it's a fun little ultimate win card. And we're also pairing that with Branching Evolution. So instead of running 4, we want to make room for Branching Evolution, so we can kind of also win with like creatures as well. Branching Evolution is a Jumpstart card. It came to us from Jumpstart on Arena, that is. 3-mana enchantment. If one or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, twice that many +1/+1 counters are put on that creature instead. So obviously these two work really, really well together, and they're even on curve. But if you're playing turn 2 enchantment, do nothing, and turn 3 do nothing enchantment, it's a little bit awkward. So kind of want to minimize some of that. But if you can get these out at the right time, then obviously you can do some pretty crazy stuff if you still have creatures out and things like that. So we're just running 3 copies, kind of make room for 2 of these, because you obviously need lots of creatures to actually benefit from these, and you don't just want to jam 4 of and things like that. You don't have any creatures, and you just have all these enchantments that aren't really doing anything because you can't find creatures. So I feel like this is kind of a pretty reasonable ratio. So we're starting off here with 4 Llanowar Elves for some ramp. It's just a nice card in any green list, and we're obviously pretty heavily invested on the green side of things. Blue is clearly just a splash color here. Obviously we want to have blue on 2 if possible for the Simic Ascendancy, but otherwise we don't really have too much use for blue until at least turn 4. We also have Wildborn Preserver. So I feel like it's pretty reasonable 2-drop here. The fact that you can flash this in, it has reach. The versatility here there is pretty nice, and then being able to put multiple counters on it at a time. But with if you play a non-human creature, and none of our other creatures are humans, so obviously it synergizes with everything that we're trying to do. And ways to put multiple counters on this at a time. You can just make it big. You can grow counters with your Ascendancy. If you have an Evolution out, obviously that's pretty insane. So a pretty fun card. Also, Invigorating Surge. Being able to instant speed, put a counter on a creature you control, then double the number of counters on that creature, especially if you have trample or maybe like flying. It's pretty amazing. It's going to help you close out the game. Even if you're in maybe like a board stall situation, it can just put a bunch of counters on it and then grow your Simic Ascendancy to 20 and then help you get that upkeep or untap win on your upkeep. So that's pretty sweet. Another card from Jumpstart here is Rishkar, Peema Renegade. I believe this is from the Aether Revolt block, or Kaladesh, whichever one that was. It's 3-mana 2/2, Elf Druid, legendary. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. And each creature controlled with that counter on it has add green. So that's pretty sweet. Synergies what we're trying to do. We have some nice X spells here, so we kind of use all of our creatures to tap for mana and just play a really big X creature, which can also help us grow our Ascendancy. And if we have a Branching Evolution out, then obviously that's going to double those counters. That's pretty insane. And obviously just putting counters when it enters the battlefield is pretty great as well. And since we are focused mostly on green, but we still are splashing blue, just want to make a couple copies, make room for 2 copies of Yorvo still. Just having a 3-mana that comes out with 4 +1 counters on it. It's pretty fantastic. And then every time you play green creatures, Yorvo gets additional counter and an additional one on top of that if the creature has a bigger power. So we have lots of big X spells, so if, we can get a creature that's even bigger than Yorvo, we get 2 additional counters on it, and even more if we have like an Evolution and things like that out in play. And I still like Mowu, even though it's not really a good card, it's still fun to play around with. It's a 4-mana 3/3 Vigilance, and whenever one or more counters are put on Mowu, you put that many +1 counters on it. So obviously the counter synergy here, being able to put additional counters on itself whenever you put counters on it is pretty fantastic. Love the synergy here. Vivian Arkbow Ranger allows us to put counters on our creatures, and also a little bit of a removal for both creatures and planeswalkers with their -3. It's pretty fantastic having a creature deal damage equal to its power to a creature or planeswalker. And then +1 to distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among up to 2 target creatures, so you can just put both of them on one creature if you want. And then that 1 or 2 creatures gain trample until end of turn, so it helps you kind of push through for damage, because some of our creatures have trample, but some of them don't. Obviously Yorvo does not, things like that. If you get a Wildborn Preserver with a ton of counters on it, then you probably want to give it like some way to get through for damage. So having trample is pretty fantastic. Another good do that is with Zegana. It's a pretty janky card, but it's a ton of fun to play around with. Obviously, it's a rare from the Guilds of Ravnica block. So if you don't already have this in your collection, feel free to substitute pretty much anything else. Another Vivian, another Mowu. There's a couple other four drop spells. Can't think of them that I was kind of looking at here that you can substitute in. But just kind of look at your collection, see what you have. Pretty much anything with a that has counter synergy would be a fine substitution. I could also just increase the number of Hydras that we're about to get to. Same thing here with Roalesk. It's a fun little card. Comes down as a 4/5 trample for 5 mana. When it enters, with you put 2+1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. So just unlike Vivian, where you can just choose up to 2 creatures, this is only just a single creature that gets those 2 counters. And then when it dies, you proliferate, and you proliferate again. So that's pretty insane. And just a 4/5 flying trample body, which is pretty solid as well. Of course, this is a mythic, so if you don't have it in your collection again, just feel free to substitute something else. But it's just a fun card. But obviously not very good or really competitive, to be honest. But it's just fun. Same thing here with Towering Titan. Maybe it doesn't even belong in this list, but the upside here is pretty insane. So I want to kind of play around, especially since it's a new card from Jumpstart. Same thing here. It is a mythic, so I would definitely not recommend crafting this because it is, a 6 mana play here, and totally dependent on your board state. Because it's just a 0/0 for 6 and enters with X +1/+1 counters, where X is a total toughness of other creatures you control. So obviously it kind of is more designed around like toughness matters. But if you look at our list, all of our creatures either have parity with their power or toughness, or they have a slightly higher toughness than power. So there's some pretty reasonable synergy here with what we're trying to do. And the sacrifice creature with defender, we don't have any defenders, but we have other ways to give it trample. So an ideal board state, this can come down with a lot of counters. Obviously, in the Jumpstart event, this has been a pretty fun card. The couple times I've resolved it, it's come down as like a 12/12 and things like that before. So it's pretty cool. Just a fun little card. If you don't have it, yeah, definitely don't need to craft it to include it here in this collection. There's tons of aggro lists in Historic, so I wanted to always include like one copy of Hungering Hydra. It's a rare from M19. So this comes down with X +1/+1 counters on it, and it can't be blocked by more than one creature. However, if it's dealt combat damage, you put that many +1/+1 counters on it. So obviously it has to survive the combat damage, but if your opponent is just kind of trying to go wide and attack with a bunch of creatures, or you can just kind of attack stuff. You can block something with it, and when it survives combat, it's going to grow, a couple counters on it and just keep getting bigger and bigger. So it's a pretty fun little card, and especially if you can give it trample, it's pretty fantastic. Wildwood Scourge, obviously it's pretty fantastic little X spell here. X in a green, enters with X +1 counters on it. And if one or more counters, I put on a non-Hydra creature you control, put a +1 counter on the Wildwood Scourge. So the Hydra obviously have a ton of synergy with counters. So there's some cards that aren't going to work as well with this. But so I tried to kind of limit it. So we're just running 3 of, not like a 4 of. And we even kind of cut down some of the other Hydras as well. Just so we're not running into that problem where we have Wildwood Scourges out, we're putting counters on things, but those counters are all going to Hydras, so that doesn't actually trigger the Wildwood Scourge. But obviously, we do have plenty of non-Hydras as well. So just 3 copies feels pretty reasonable as well. Also, Voracious Hydra, since we don't really have much interaction, Voracious Hydra give us a way to kind of fight stuff on our opponent's side and kill it. Or just double the number of counters, which can really obviously grow your Simic Ascendancy, or just make doubling them again if you have the branch evolution out in play, because it's a 0/1 X green has trample built into it, which is pretty fantastic. And then when it enters, you can choose to fight a creature you don't control, or you double the number of +1 counters on a Voracious Hydra. So it's a pretty solid card here. Hydroid Krasis obviously is just a great card all around. It is a Hydra, so keep that in mind. But just the card draw and life gain is pretty fantastic, and just a variety of matchups against aggro. Helps you dig for more spells. And the life gain is obviously pretty critical. And even against control, it's a cast trigger, so even if they counter it or whatever, you're still going to gain some life and draw some cards. And those are always relevant. Mana base, we're still running, we're on 25 lands because we were pretty mana hungry with all these X spells and things like that. So 2 Castle Garenbrig, since we're pretty heavily focused on green. 10 forests, so I have no islands. You should typically like to run just a single basic. But in this one, especially with like Llanowar Elves and things like that, I just decided just to run all the dual lands. So 2 Castle Garenbrigs, 10 forests, 4 breeding pools, 4 Hinterland Harbors, were fantastic, and then Temple of Mystery. It's a bit awkward sometimes if you have a Temple as your turn 1 play instead of a Llanowar Elf, but I think it's just kind of worth it to try to fit in that that blue mana in our mana base, but also still having like a green land as well. And finally, we have a single copy of Karn's Bastion, since we're running all these counter synergy to proliferate. So this is a pretty janky list. We're pretty subject to removal heavy decks. Even against aggro might be just a little bit too slow. So probably not something I want to recommend in ranked, unless you're at the very lower tiers of ranked play. Then you can try it out. But so there is a sideboard here. Hopefully we can get some best of 3 unranked queues in Historic, because there's just so many fun decks I love to play like in best of 3 environments. But unfortunately, the only way I played best of 3 in Historic is ranked play. Alright, so in the sideboard here, also bringing an additional copy of Hungering Hydra, 2 copies of Vivian Read, 2 Questing Beast to increase the power level. Vivian can pick off flyers, artifacts, and enchantment, which is pretty fantastic, and also dig for creatures. So she's just a great card. Gemrazer, since we're putting all the counters on things, having a mutate on top of them, and then having a 4/4 with a bunch of counters on it is pretty fantastic. Reach, trample, and destroy an artifact or an enchantment. And then, of course, Scavenging Ooze to deal with that in graveyard decks. All putting counters on it and gaining life is fantastic. Heroic Intervention to protect your board, giving your permanents hexproof and indestructible. Negates to protect from board wipes and removal, but also planeswalkers as well. And then finally, Allosaurus Shepherd. You can also try Destiny Spinner if you don't have this card. Or you just stick to, of course, the best of 1 version. But Allosaurus Shepherd is just kind of a way to protect your spells. Destiny Spinner says creatures and enchantments can be countered. But the last thing about Allosaurus Shepherd is the green spells you control can't be countered. And of course, it itself cannot be countered, which is pretty fantastic. And we do have some elves. Obviously, we have like Rishkar, Llanowar Elves, and things like that. And so the activated ability could be relevant, maybe. Paying 6 mana and giving your elves base power enough from 5/5 and dinosaurs until end of turn. It could be relevant in certain situations, maybe. But yeah, it's kind of the sideboard if you do want to try it out in best of 3, or if we do get a best of 3 queue at some point, please, hopefully. All right, so best of 1. We're just gonna jump into some historic best of 1 and just have some fun casual matches. Okay, I've been Sliver Planeswalker. It's an interesting hand. I think we keep. I think the upside of these cards is pretty fantastic. I think we actually Scourge on 2 here. And Vivian, that's pretty cool. Alright, so I think we just Scourge for X1. Play Yorvo on 3, which will come down with counters and put counters on the Scourge as well. Abzan, Gilded Goose. Okay. Alright, play you, +1. So Abzan does not really want to see. They probably have lots of removal. Maybe some Planeswalkers. And this is best of 1, unranked, so hopefully we're not running into some overpowered stuff like that. But we shall see. Elvish Visionary. So just Abzan midrange. Play Yorvo as a 4/4, grows the Scourge. And yeah, we'll get in there for 2. And next turn we can Rishkar, Breeding Pool, or Vivian. Although we're not too worried about either of these creatures. We could try to kill the Goose just so they don't ramp, although it might be a little bit too late at this point. So we'd like to get off the board if this game does drag on, so they don't just make food tokens and gain a bunch of life. So we'll see what they do here. With the Goose, they have 5 mana open. Okay, just go with another Goose. So killing geese isn't too amazing here. You can also just go Trample. So they're going super wide. But none of these creatures really matter too much except for the Gooses, so they could still have like a Shatter next turn. They're just trying to set us up. So I think I'm just going to Vivian. And plus, get in for some trample damage. Right, so distribute counters, so the Yorvo gets a counter, which will make the Wildwood Scourge get a counter, so it's going to be a 4/4 and a 5/5. And both have trample.
I'd get out of the way if I were you.
And they can swing 2 at Vivian, which is fine. I imagine here they just have like a Shatter or a Ritual of Soot or something, maybe Extinction Event. This definitely looks pretty mid-rangey if you're playing Elvish Visionary, but you're not like an Elf Ball kind of list, especially Gilded Gooses, you're just trying to ramp. And Visionary to kind of keep drawing for, yep, stuff like that. So now they, Vivian, make us sack both of our creatures. They lose their, what, Visionaries, which have already kind of done their job. Alright, so they're -4, which means Vivian goes down to 2. So we can play you. And use Vivian to fight the... or cancel it. What do we want to do here? So we just need at least at... Well, let's see. So play you. I think we want to get the Llanowar down. Doesn't matter. I think I would like to have multiple creatures out. So we'll play... I guess we'll get the Llanowar Elf down just to see what we draw next turn. We'll play you for X2. Double the counters. And just fight off the Liliana. Pass turn. So get that off the board. They use their tokens, so if they have another Liliana, they're going to need a land here. Otherwise, they're just giving Goose, maybe making some food tokens. Monsters out. Okay, so this is just a Ebs and mid range with a bunch of planeswalkers and the unranked queue. Sure. It's probably not good enough for historic ranked, maybe, or maybe they're still playtesting it. When I ran this list, it felt pretty reasonable. So we can't kill Vivian. So play you. Put some counters. Put some counters. So we have 6 power. They can block 7 of it. So if they want to throw everything in front of this Hydra, they can keep their Vivian at 4. Wow. Must have not had a very good... Alright, we had Stone Fury. Man. It's 3 lands, so we'll keep it. Also, I'd love if there's a forest or something. It's kind of like I don't want to run too many Garenbrigs. It's pretty terrible in your opening hand with stuff like this. But we have the temple. To scry, we're on the draw. Oh great, it's a 180 card pile of nonsense. Evolving Wilds. Oh, that's perfect. Let's get the Llanowar down. I got some options here next turn. Probably just Temple and Wildborn Preserver. Evolving Wilds number 2. Pretty slow start from us and slow start from them as well. Alright, is it? Play you. Mowu. Do we want Mowu on form? I don't have anything to put counters, way to put counters on it, so I think we just pass. Let's have the Krasis, might just play it on form. So your 180 Shrines deck. Wow, that's next level right there. Swing 2. Draw a card. I think with the way the game passes priority, when you can't do something, it would just recognize you're tapped out and have no way to pay for it, and it would just automatically pass over this. Get our Roalesk down. Swing 6. So we gotta add some mana here. I choose black. Another white source, couldn't be a shatter. Nope, another presence. I get to draw a bunch of cards, but we're showing quite a bit of damage here. Let's see, 8, 10, 11, so we need 2. Yeah. Play you, pay 2. Kill our opponent. Wildborn Preserver. Beautiful card. Beautiful card. Alright, against Vaco Loco. Nice. Pretty Narset sleeves. Alright. Don't love the Titan opening hand, but Llanowar, Double Preserver, Hydra. It's reasonable. Just want to see more lands here with these draws, but yeah. It's not a terrible opening hand. Obviously no green source, or red, excuse me, blue source of mana, but nothing in our hand that costs blue anyways. A Leyline of the Void. Okay. So there's certain decks they absolutely hate. They have to play Leyline in their main deck. Like just mono black. I should just pay 2 here. So obviously I have a bunch of removal we need to fight through, so I think I'd rather just kind of get these Hydras down, see what they have. Underworld Dreams. That's very cute. Alright, let's play you for X. We'll just do 2. So we can swing with the Llanowar. So we got 4 mana open, so we're still a couple ends from the Titan. You're mono black, but you're running Mythos of Nethroi? Okay. Sure. I think so, just X2 here. Swing 3. So they could be splashing Abzan. Otherwise, Mythos of Nethroi is kind of a terrible card if you're just running mono black. And Grim Tutor. So we're going to look for a board clear here. I'm assuming a Ritual of Sit. Let's see, I guess that's with X, that means these are all 1-drops. They could also do East Extinction, choose Odd. I would exile all these. And they don't have to reveal it, so we'll see what it is. There's a Hinterland Harbor, perfect. So we can now swing with Llanowar Elves, pressure their life total, and we have double Wildborn Preserver. And then we can untap. So unless I have a disfigure, we play these. Obviously we don't have mana to pay for it, but since they're non-humans, we can pay this time. Play you. Sure. Play you, pay 2. Swing 6. Alright, nice cute little deck. It's Mr. Jester 97. We got the Simic Ascendancy in our turn 2. Perfect. And then we got some nice Arcbows here. So Ascendancy on 2, Scourge on 3. Hard to scry for hopefully a land. We'll take that. Alright, they're also running Simic, it appears. Could be Merfolk. It's a Gilgate, so it could just be Gates as well or something, or just some kind of a budget mana base. Elementals, maybe? Llanowar is nice, but I think with this hand, I think we're just going to keep running these Scourges out. Alright, so we got a 2-2 down. Of course, these are Hydras, so I'm not going to trigger the Wildwood Scourge. Okay, just Simic Elementals, or Teamer, maybe? I think we'll actually just X2 try to draw. There's a Vivian, that's pretty cool. We can use that to pick off a Risen Reef next turn, although it might just be too late if they have Elemental here. Which undoubtedly they do. Okay, so it is Teamer. Overgrowth Elemental. Alright, so I probably just need to play this a little bit defensively. So we can Llanowar, Vivian. So they can grow. So let's get rid of that.
You picked the wrong fight.
So I don't get that value. And so no attacks. Want to kind of dissuade them from attacking. Lightning Strike. It's a curious inclusion for. Okay, so they got some really interesting inclusions. Legion Warboss and a Lightning Strike. So they can kill our Vivian here if they swing all. Yeah, we'll chump. So Lightning Strike is pretty clutch. We need to get rid of the Risen Reef. Play you, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, X4. Plus, you and you. Then the count on Elf will trigger the Wildwood Scourges as well. And now we're just kind of need to keep our Vivian alive and keep growing counters to grow the Simic Ascendancy and just try to win that way. Not sure they can win faster than us. Alright, so now they're in a pretty commanding spot. Obviously, no Omnath, which is nice. Just the 1/1. That's pretty conservative. Oh, we'll take that block. All right, 1, 2, 3, X. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. X5. 5. We just need to live one more turn here. And yeah. So this should be enough to grow the Simic Ascendancy past 20. Unless they have a way to kill us or remove the enchantment. Say good game. They know they're dead to the Ascendancy. So we don't care about our creatures. We have the Simic Ascendancy, so we can just block just so we don't die. Alright, so I have nothing in hand, no Castle Garenbrig or anything like that, so we're just going to block the most damage here. Alright, so block you, let's see, you, and you. So we'll lose one of our things, but it just does not matter. Alright, so they pump and deal 6 damage. Hungering Hydra goes as well. And we get the Simic Ascendancy. Whew! That Vivian, man, she comes in clutch in this list. Whew! Simic Ascendancy and Vivian with those Wildwood Scourges. So yeah, that's why you don't want too many Hydras, because then if you have too many Hydras, then obviously you're not going to get those triggers. So you kind of have to ride that fine line to get just the right number. Alright, so we did get a pack during this process, so let's celebrate here. Core 21. What do we got? Still missing quite a few mythics. And some rares. Speaker of the Heavens. Not really what I wanted to see, but it is a rare that we don't have in our collection, so we will take it. Alright, so yeah, just a fun, janky little list. Simic Ascendancy, fun little card, sad to see rotate. Obviously, you don't already have it in your collection, probably not really worth crafting. But you know, if you have a couple copies, you can still run this in like a Simic kind of counter strategy, and it's just kind of there if you do have an opening hand. Great. If you draw a late game and you just use it to activate and put counters on things, that could be great as well. But you saw that elemental list where we didn't have good attacks, but we still could just kind of keep back and grow our stuff and put counters, and we just got the Simic Ascendancy win. So that's pretty fantastic. And then of course Vivian makes trample, so if you do get to that point, we can also just win with creatures as well. Same thing with things like Zegana or things like that. There's other ways to kind of give trample. There's the Pride Malkin. There's a couple other cards that help you can give your creatures trample as well. So definitely definitely find some substitutes if you're missing these cards and this deck does interest you at all. But otherwise, yeah, just a fun casual deck. Not something I recommend for the ranked play, but definitely something I wanted to showcase. And the Branch and Evolution didn't really make an appearance there, but that's fine. Rishkar was pretty impressive. I was definitely happy to play around with that. We had the Towering Titan in our hand, but it actually had to cast it. And yeah, the Hydra's definitely put in a lot of work there. The Hydras, you saw how impressive that was in the Elemental match, where just kind of got a bunch of counters. We'd already had hit the 20, so even though it got those additional counters, it didn't really matter at that point. But if you were in a situation where you were still maybe struggling to find counters for your Simic Ascendancy, or just want to make it really big and then have ways to trample through for damage, that was really impressive in that kind of aggro style decks. So you could also bring take out the Titan for a second Hungering Hydra if you already have two of these in your collection, because kind of probably just win more, but it is kind of a fun card. It could be kind of a cool, just kind of go over the top and just make some really crazy plays and just make like a 20-20 or something like that out of nowhere. So yeah, pretty fun little list. Definitely enjoyed showcasing it for you guys. And until next time, make sure you jank with a purpose.